Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, thank you for joining today. We wanted to seek the blessings of Radha Madhav, Radha Shyam Sundar, Radha Damodar, Krishna Balaram, Bal Gopal, Gauritai, Srila Prabhupada, Guru Maharaj, and the assembled devotees. Yesterday was the appearance day of Kishora Das Babaji. So I wanted to just remember his life and times as much as we know, and as much as I know anyway. This is Srila Prabhupada, who founded the Hare Krishna movement. His guru is Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur guru is Kishora Das Babaji, according to the line of Guru Parampara that we are following. And the Guru, Shiksha Guru of Kishora Das Babaji is Bhakti Vinod Thakur. And Bhakti Vinod Thakur was also the father of Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And again, the Shiksha Guru of Bhakti Vinod Thakur was Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj. So in this way, the parampara goes, and then further gurus and disciples were there before Jagannath Das Babaji. This is Kishora Das Babaji. In 1849, Srila Kishora Das Babaji left his household life after the death of his wife. Before that, he was known as Vamsidas. At that time, he was maintaining his life by farming corn, in this way doing honest work and living a regulated life according to the principles of the scriptures, with his chaste and humble wife. After she passed away, he moved to Vrindavan. He took initiation from Sri Bhagavat Das Babaji, a disciple of the topmost Vaishnava, Sri Jagannath Das Babaji. He accepted the dress of one in the renounced order of life and thus became a Babaji. So Babaji means basically all you do is bhajan, kirtan. You don't do anything else. You just singing glories of name. You're not even preaching. It's just literally focused on the holy names of the Lord. For over 30 years, Kishora Das Babaji stayed in Vrindavan, performing bhajan under the tree at Giri Govardhan, or Nandagram, Barsana, Radhakund, Suryakund, Raval, Gokul, all these different places in the Brajbhumi area. Sitting in seclusion, he chanted 2 lakh Hare Krishna Maha Mantra every day. So that's 128 rounds. And we do 16 rounds, or we try to do 16 rounds every day. Compared to that, Kishora Das Babaji was doing 128 rounds. Really phenomenal. And he felt painful separation from Radha Govinda. He would cry profusely. So he was always feeling in the mood of separation from Radha and Krishna. As he wandered through the Dwadas Van, the 14 forests of Braj, he would loudly chant the holy names in a deep voice full of lamentation. Srila Babaji Maharaj's mood of renunciation was unparalleled. He took Madhukari from the Brajvasis. So Madhukari is basically begging from the people who live in Vrindavan. Madhukari is Babaji's daily practice of begging a little food from 1 to 7 houses, just as a bee collects a drop of honey from each flower. So sometimes he would get food, sometimes he may not get food. But if he didn't get food, he wouldn't worry. He would just fast and then next day again do Madhukari. In that way, he would sustain himself. He saw all the Brajbasis, residents of Vrindavan, as being the direct personal associates of Radha and Krishna. Yes, Prabhaben.
Hare Krishna. What is Madhukari?
Madhukari is where you're basically begging door to door. And you say to you have a vow, I will only go to one house every day or 7 houses. And whatever I get, I will eat. And usually what happens, Madhukari consists usually of like a chapati and a little sabji. So rotli ne thodik shak.
Has he got the container or is he taking in his hand?
Yeah, he may have container. Or some of the devotees were very austere. Whatever fits on one palm, that's all they'll take. Some would use their cloth. So anything that's given to them, they would put in their cloth. The piece they wear at the top, they would use that. Some have container, but generally speaking, they don't have container. Generally speaking, no.
All right, it's
Very
always
austere. Yeah, very austere.
Thank you.
Thank you for asking. And I remember one time I did have some madhukari from somebody. We were touring in, where were we? We were going near Radhakund. And I tasted a little bit of this roti. It was really amazing, actually, amazing taste. But that was only time I ever did that. He saw all the Brajvasis as being direct personal associate of Radha and Krishna. And this is the mood when one is in Vrindavan, that the Brajvasis are relatives, close relatives of Radha and Krishna. As a result of his vision, he would pay respects to every person, cow, animal, bird, tree, creeper, insect, ant in the holy dham. While staying in Varsana, he made a flower garland every day for Rai and Kanu, Radha Krishna. After 30 years of rendering intimate services to Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan, Babaji felt inspired by the divine couple to see Navadvip Dham. So Navadvip is in West Bengal, Mayapur. He visited all the Leela Sthans of Lord Gauranga, this is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in Gaura Mandal. In Navadvip, he used to sing one bhajan. This is the bhajan in English. By receiving Nitai's mercy, one gets Gauranga's mercy, which makes one eligible for Prema Bhakti. With Prema Bhakti, one can attain the service of Srimati, Radharani, and the gopis. So this is very important. We seek the blessings of Nityananda. From Nityananda, we get straight away Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mercy. And then it's very easy to obtain Prema Bhakti. Gaura Kishora Das Babaji was the embodied form of Sri Rupa Raghunath's renunciation. He was completely detached. He would wash discarded cloth to cover his body. So he wouldn't wear new clothes. He would find some old piece of cloth, wash it, cover his body. Very renounced. He drank from a rejected clay pot. Parched rice mixed with Ganga water or simply some mud from the Ganga's banks sustained his life. So austere. On Ekadashi, he didn't eat or drink a drop of water. He carried 2 books written by Srila Narottam Das Thakur, Pratna and Prema Bhakti Chandrika. And I think Karuna sang all the bhajans from both these books. And these are amazing bhajans. Give so much amazing detail of the pastimes of Radha and Krishna. Regularly, he associated with and heard Bhagavatam from Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur in Swananda Shukandit Kunj in Godrundvip. So this is where we went this time. This is Bhakti Vinod Thakur's place. across the river Jalangi from Mayapur. Very, very nice place. Very peaceful, still a very peaceful place. Gaura Kishora was a Siksha disciple, an intimate friend of Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. Constantly absorbed in bhajan, Srila Babaji Maharaj had no desire to make disciples. So, however, on the request of Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he reconsidered. Upon seeing the true humility and deep attachment of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's son for bhajan, Srila Gaura Kishora Das Babaji accepted one disciple, Srila Vashabhanavai Daita Das. That's Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. So he had one disciple. But Gaura Kishora Das Babaji actually was illiterate. He couldn't read or write. He was a simple farmer. But his disciple, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati, he was a scholar. And he had 60,000 disciples. And Gaura Kishora Das Babaji had one. So this is
Prabhuji?
extraordinary. Yes.
Yes. The Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disciples, they sort of, they did not sort of expand like our Srila Prabhupada's disciples and getting more and more disciples under each of them.
Gaudiya Math has, I mean, the Gaudiya Math, what happened was there was a lot of, after a spiritual master goes, there's always a lot of disturbance, huge disturbance, So after Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati left, unfortunately, the Gaudiya Math didn't stay united. They sort of split, and different charya, different gurus came up and formed their own societies. But it has grown, I would say. It's just been splintered, and they went, most of them, split up and went their different directions, And Prabhupada, of course, formed the Hare Krishna movement, which became worldwide famous because, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had instructed him, he should preach in English, should go to the West and all that. And he fulfilled that desire of Srila, his spiritual master. But I wouldn't say that the Gaudiya Math has not grown. I think it has, but it just didn't grow in a united way. Many gurus set up their own organizations, and slowly they're growing that way.
Okay. So each one, probably there are not just one like ISKCON. There were different. Do you know any names of any of them? Do you know? Would you know by chance? Or
oh yeah,
let me know if you later.
Yeah. Yes, Sri Chaitanya Saraswati Math, and I think Shyam Malini, you are here.
Yes, Prabhu, I'm here.
Yes. So, which math are you belonging to?
Chaitanya Saraswati Math.
See, Chaitanya Saraswati Math.
Okay.
And there's the Kanu Priya is also following in that same.
Yes, I knew Kanu Priya.
Yeah. And Surinder, he joins us. He's in the same. There's also the Gaudiya Vedanta Math. There's many. There's also the Chaitanya Math on its own. Chaitanya Math. Yeah. There's quite a few different maths.
Do they have this principle of doing 16 malas, what we have, and following 4 regulative principles, or?
I think they do.
Shyama Malini may answer.
Yeah, Shyama Malini. Yes.
Yes, but our guru said, for ladies, if we can't make 4 minimum 4, but of course 16 is the maximum. I mean, best amount to
require.
Do.
Yeah. The best.
Amount.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think sometimes this is one of the what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati used to say was 64 rounds. 64 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think he made it a condition of initiation. He would just say you should try to chant 64 rounds. And I think that's the principle that the Gaudiya Math still works under. Try to chant 64 rounds. as much as you possibly can. I don't think necessarily they specify 16 as the minimum. As Shyam Malini said, 4 is probably the minimum, but they sort of request their disciples chant 64 rounds, you know, as much as you can. So,
Okay, so they would have a different lineage of Guru Parampara.
slightly different after Bhakti Siddhanta.
Yes.
Yeah.
Repeat.
That's correct.
And did you say they do not take initiation?
They do take initiation, but it might not be that they are required to do 16 rounds. They usually say, try to chant 64 rounds.
No, we have to take initiation. Yeah.
Yeah, initiation is there.
Okay.
Initiation. And there's Prabhupada's very dear godbrother, who he regarded as his Shiksha Guru, is Srila Maharaj. Srila Maharaj is this Sri Chaitanya Mutt is under him. So.
Okay. Sri Chaitanya Mutt, it's called.
And they have a temple in East London and West London, I think, as well, isn't it? Yeah. So
we have one in Hatton Cross. And there's other Gaudiya Math. There's one I know in Walthamstow. There's one in Willesden Green. I know some devotees, some Bengali, they go there.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Prabhuji. Thanks, Shyama Malini Mataji.
You're welcome, Prabhuji.
There's some small differences. How, like, for example, when they do the Pemadvani, Jai Om Vishnupad Paramsa, we bow down, but actually they don't bow down. They looking at the deities while they're saying Jai. You know? So small differences like that will be there. They may not sing all the same bhajans like in the Mangalati.
Yes, their Mangalacharan is quite long, much longer than ours. Because I waited.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Okay,
different. Yes, and because I am in Kanupriya's Tuesday class.
Oh, okay.
There's quite a long, and in the end also, there's quite a long, when we said the joy, when you know at the end, in the Srila Prabhupada, they said joy for remembering everything. Here, it's quite a different type of the joy to different personnel, different people, quite different.
Yeah. That would be.
So some differences are there. Okay.
Yeah. Small differences. Prabhupada changed a few things. Like you know, he allowed, for example, the Matajis to also stay in the temple. And that's really revolutionary, you know, because in Bharat, in Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's time, there was no Mataji staying in the temple. So when Prabhupada came in the West, he altered that because he saw the situation, it needed to be different, you know?
Yeah.
Like that.
Okay, thanks, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the questions. So the Thakur arranged a bhajan kutir for him, for Gaura Kishora Das Babaji, on the same property as Bhaktivinoda Thakur's house in Godrum Dweep. When the time came, Hare Krishna.
Yeah, you know, one thing I would want to say, that moment when Prabhupada's Guru was there, so many people just dropped down. Why? Because they were not chanting 16 round, Prabhuji. 16 round is something which keep you close to Krishna, and you could every day you chant 16 round minimum, and we were chanting a bit more, but it makes you stuck with the lotus feet of Guru and Parampara, and then you will not fall. I know in Mauritius, when those person who was that Guru which you just said, they fall down and not following, you are not following any rules and regulations, they are like karmis. And you know, when Guru Maharaj was here, he introduced all these system, and there are very few who had abandoned, but many disciples of Guru Maharaj, they are quite sincere. Haribol.
Thank you. Yes. Yeah, chanting is so important. Absolutely agree. The absolute fundamental basis of our spiritual existence, chanting Mahamantra.
I told you, it's told us, and Prabhupada said, you chant minimum 16 rounds, not only 16 rounds. You can chant 16, 20, 50 or whatever, but it makes you close to Guru and Krishna.
Mhm.
Actually,
Yeah.
it also says that whatever is state of mind, anxiety, this and that, don't worry, just keep chanting. That is the basic of our
That's it, Mataji. That's it.
Srila Prabhupada says, isn't it? Just
Yes.
I remember that because when you go through difficult times, you sometimes feel down. But I said, no, this is not the way. You have to keep chanting, chanting, chanting.
You are touched with Krishna, that is, you chanting the holy name. When the holy name is being chanted in as a word, Krishna is here, but we have not the eyes to see him.
Mhm.
This is Krishna conscious. And you
Yeah.
get the taste to say. Yesterday was Ekadashi, Prabhuji. We chanted 16, 25, 30, 32, and then we get a bit exhausted and we take rest. We took rest.
Mhm.
It is like this. It depends upon the people. If you are studying Srimad Bhagavatam or Chaitanya Charitamrita, you will not fall. Never, Prabhuji. This is Hare Krishna.
Hare
Hare-
Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
And anyway, yeah, you're right. When difficulties come, we take shelter. But when happiness comes, we take shelter as well. Because
Yes.
we know it's temporary, you know, everything's temporary. So very true. Very true. Okay, that's very good feedback. Thank you. When the time came for Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur to take Diksha, Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur advised him to approach Gaura Kishora Das Babaji. Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur was the father of Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and his first instructor in spiritual science. But the etiquette was that one would not take Diksha from one's biological father. So Srila Bhakti Vinod Thakur sent his son to Gaura Kishora Das Babaji. Now, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was highly literate, right? He was a scholar. He could, by the age of 7, he memorized the whole Bhagavad Gita. He could explain its verses. He had a photographic memory. And in school, he read all the books in the entire library. Just by reading them once, he could remember every word. And so the library purchased new books just for him. By 25, he had written numerous articles and published a book, Surya Siddhanta, for which he was awarded the title Siddhanta Saraswati. So he was highly educated and literate, whereas Gaura Kishora Das Babaji was hardly educated or literate at all. This is the most amazing thing. The first time Siddhanta Saraswati approached Gaura Kishora Das Babaji, the Babaji refused to accept him. He didn't say no directly, but he said, I will ask Mahaprabhu. When Siddhanta Saraswati returned and told his father what had happened, Bhaktivinoda Thakur encouraged him to persevere. You must go back and beg him with all humility and earnestness to accept you. So he went back, and Gaura Kishora Das said, he refused again. I forgot to ask Mahaprabhu. I am so sorry. When Siddhanta Saraswati returned home, Bhaktivinoda Thakur was most upset. He knew Gaura Kishora Das Babaji was a pure devotee, and he urged Siddhanta Saraswati to persist. He again instructed his son to beg Gaura Kishora Das Babaji for his mercy. And he added, if you fail this time, don't bother to come back home. So Siddhanta Saraswati left the home and went to the Ganga. He felt so hopeless, he thought he might as well drown himself in the river. Just then Gaura Kishora Das Babaji appeared. He knew what was in the future disciple's heart. So Siddhanta Saraswati just threw himself at the lotus feet of Gaura Kishora Das Babaji in abject humility and complete surrender. Finally, Gaura Kishora Das Babaji accepted him. Siddhanta Saraswati had shown that he was free from any tinge of false pride, even though he was so learned and literate, and his guru was uneducated. But of course, his guru is one of the great devotees, pure devotees of the Lord. Srila Prabhupada remarked that Gaura Kishora Das Babaji was illiterate and could not even sign his name, yet he became the spiritual master of Saraswati Thakur, the best scholar of this time. Although Gaura Kishora Das Babaji was hardly educated or literate, learned scholars and public servants would approach him with their questions on Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures. And with his realized knowledge, he would answer their questions to their full satisfaction. Sometimes devotees would read various scriptures for him and he would comment on them from his deep spiritual realization. But to keep mundane people away from approaching him for material boons, he once resided in the lavatory at the Kuliya Dharamsala in Koladweep for 6 months. When public officials came offering him to build him a proper bhajan kutir, Babaji Maharaj locked himself inside and said he already had one. He believed that associating with materialistic people was much worse than the smell of stool in a latrine. Gaura Das Babaji advised a Calcutta doctor who wanted to open a free health clinic in Navadvip Dham. If you really want to live in Navadvip Dham, then give up your desire to run a free clinic for healing sense enjoyers. If you want to render substantial service, then renounce everything except what promotes Hari Bhajan. All other kinds of duties and services simply bind one to the ghastly cycle of karmic reaction. Babaji Maharaj spoke gravely to a newly married man. A Vaishnava wife is extremely rare and difficult to find in this world. If one has the good fortune of having one, he should see it as a benediction from Krishna. The wife worships the husband as her Lord and Master. Similarly, the husband should worship the wife because she is Krishna Dasi, servant of Krishna. In this way, the husband can protect his devotional enthusiasm by not considering his wife to be his maidservant, but she is always the maidservant of Krishna. Very amazing advice. How difficult it was to get the service of Babaji Maharaj is illustrated by the following example. Once the Maharaj of Kashi Bazar, Manindra Chandranandi Bahadur, sent someone to fetch Babaji Maharaj to his royal palace. At that time, Babaji Maharaj said, if I were to go to the king's palace, the desire for riches would arise within me. So in the king's company, mutual ill feelings would develop between me and the king. If the king wants to be my friend, tell the king to leave everything, leave behind all his material opulence and the objects of enjoyment and come here where I am. He can live here with me and live just as I am doing. He can make a small covering out of straw, like those used for covering the boats used by fishermen. There, the two of us can live, the king and I, and together we can worship Hari in great ecstasy. So he didn't care for wealth, and he didn't care to even be with wealthy people. One who wants bhajan, eating palatably, will spoil his bhajan, was a favorite quote of Babaji Maharaj. We eat too much, and this is a problem. Eating too much is a problem. In other words, eating here and there simply to gratify the tongue, bhajan, destroys any attempts to worship Krishna, bhajan. Once a devotee ate some festival prasad in his bhajan kutir. Babaji Maharaj would not speak to him for 3 days. On the 4th day, he said, you accepted festival prasad given by low-class Harriets and beautiful women because you took food without considering its origin. Your bhajan is useless. So he was strict. He was really strict. Once on the anniversary of the disappearance of Srila Sanatana Goswami, Babaji Maharaj said, this afternoon we shall have a great festival, a mahotsav, for this holy day marks the passing of Srila Sanatana Goswami. His servant, who was nearby at the time, heard him and asked, where will you get the things we need for a festival? Srila Babaji Maharaj explained, we have no need of anything. We may fast and chant the holy name of Krishna. And in this humble way, we shall enjoy a great festival. This is a really nice point. A big festival doesn't mean having lots of people, lots of nice prasad. You know, the best festival is one where you celebrate within your heart humbly. One day, a resident of Agartala named Sri Nirendra Kumar Sen came to visit Srila Babaji Maharaj. He wanted to know the Siddha Pranali, the path of perfection. Actually, Siddha Pranali is where the spiritual master reveals what your spiritual identity is. So this person wanted that. Srila Babaji Maharaj told him, you cannot know Bhagwan through your fanciful imagination. If you go on chanting the holy name, you will gradually realize the internal meaning of its syllables. The swarup of the holy name will manifest itself. The sadhaka at that time will also realize his own internal self. So that's the point. We don't need to beg the spiritual master, or what is our eternal situation. No, let's not even worry about that. Let's just chant, let's just serve the Lord, and in time everything will come. At that time also the sadhaka will awaken to his particular divine service to Sri Krishna, the service that will be dear to his heart upon attaining perfection. The essence of Srila Kishora Babaji's instructions was as follows. The divine name of Krishna offers the one and only shelter. So this is like what we were just saying, how Sitaram was saying, how just chanting 16 protects us. So this is the one and only shelter. One should never try to remember Radha Damodar's transcendental pastimes by artificial means. Let it come naturally. When we're reading, we are absorbing, and then in time, it'll come. Not that we're chanting and we're imagining Radha Krishna. That's artificial. Constant chanting of divine names will purify the heart. By chanting Hare Nam, the syllables of the Mahamantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, will gradually reveal the spiritual form, qualities, and pastimes of Krishna. Gradually. Yes.
Sorry, yes. This one should never try to remember the.
Not artificially,
But sometimes when you're chanting, you try to.
Naturally.
Mind.
Naturally, perfect. That's what you want. When it naturally comes, it's wonderful. But we're chanting and you're thinking, yes, Baba, like Krishna, not like that. We're manufacturing it within our mind. When it comes naturally, like you were saying, that is required, that is needed. That's good.
So sometimes, yes, even things, and then you try to remember Radha Kund and Shyam Kund, and so ideally, if it's, I don't know, it's a little bit hard to understand, not coming naturally or coming naturally.
See, if you're chanting and you're thinking about Radha Kund, like, bringing Radha Kund into your mind, that's a little bit rasabhas. It's like, let the chanting, just listening to the names, just focusing the mind on the chanting is better.
Okay. Yeah.
And then, as you said, when naturally something comes, when you're thinking of Krishna, just naturally Radha Kund comes. Wow, that's great. That's great. Not forcing ourselves to think about different, pastimes or places. Yeah, because then it just is like imagination. We're not giving the chance to the holy name to settle into our very being,
Okay.
So,
that's important thing to learn today. Okay,
just focusing on the chanting. Just remember hearing, focusing the mind on the chanting. Yeah.
Yeah, but some people say that you can put Hare Krishna mantra, Maha Mantra cassette or something to improve your chanting. Is that allowed? I wouldn't.
I mean, if it helps you on the chanting or hearing, if it helps you hearing, yes, but I would not recommend it personally. The reason being, you're chanting and you're listening at the same time. Two things are happening, and nothing else really should be in the middle.
Yes, I think I believe that it's only chanting. You should hear that sound only.
Yeah, if that's and if you're just, and every time we chant the Maha Mantra, it's like it's not a repetitive, boring experience. It's like a freshness to it. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. There's an enthusiasm to hear the names, even if we're just chanting over and over, but it's not that, it's monotonous, it's boring, I'm doing, I'll read something while I'm chanting because it's so boring. We're giving Krishna wrong messages. So
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Hare Bol.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna.
When we chant, we get pleasure, Prabhu. We are just after the pleasure. When you chant, you cannot see anything, you cannot hear anything. You are just focusing on the Lord's name. It is so, so, so beautiful, so
Sweet.
nice.
Yeah.
This is chanting. That's why I told you some minutes before that you cannot chant only 16, you chant even 25. So,
Yeah.
so that it depends if you have time, but you should have time for Krishna, Prabhu. It depends upon your advancements depend how you chant, how many rounds you chant. It is like this, Prabhu. Haribol.
Very good. It's like if you chanted your 16 rounds and you're thinking, whew, thank God for that. I've done my rounds. That's not a right attitude. But if you've done your 16 and you're thinking, okay, you know what? I can chant more. That's perfect. That's why, like Jayanti, she chants all 16 rounds right in the morning. And then throughout the day, she's continued the chanting. And that's very impressive. That's really good.
One thing you should think that it is not a burden. It is not a burden.
Not a
to chant
burden, yeah.
to 16 rounds. It is happiness. When you chant in happiness,
Happiness.
okay, Krishna finding who is found in everyone's heart, he is glorifying us. He gives us the taste to chant the holy name. It's like this, probably.
Yeah.
Okay, Haribol.
Thank you. And sometimes, yes, Pawan. Yes, Pawan.
Yeah, just I've been listening all of the conversation. Very nice.
Yeah.
Chanting what Karuna Ben said. It's difficult, but I have heard the same thing that from other religious, that if you have a light music in the back and you do chanting, it's fine. It won't disturb you. You
As
can,
long as it doesn't disturb or interfere. Yes.
No, you can still concentrate on your Hare Ram, Hare Krishna chant or Hare Ram chant. And you won't, in your mind, you will just think the picture of Hare Krishna, Hare Ram, and that's it.
Yeah,
And
that's okay.
it will really help you.
Maybe some people, but my personal preference is no noise whatsoever. And that's why we chant early morning, that even the birds are not awake. There's nothing, you're just hearing the holy name. That's it.
That's what my mother used to do very early morning.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's best.
But
And sometimes it might even feel like a burden, but we tell ourselves, no, this is happiness. But, in the beginning, you feel, oh man, do I have to chant so much? It can feel like a burden, but you keep telling yourself, no, this is the best possible thing that one can do. Which is chanting the holy name.
Early morning, 4 o'clock, yeah? Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone.
Thank you. Very good discussion. On 19th of November, 1915, so yesterday was his disappearance day. Srila Kishora Babaji joined the eternal pastimes of Gandharvika Giridhari. There was some dispute over what would happen to his body. So when he passed away, his body was there. His samadhi would, of course, become an important place of pilgrimage. And some of the heads of the local Vaishnav centers or mandirs saw this as an opportunity to raise money for their mats. Sorry about that. So they wanted to build a samadhi, and samadhi is where the body of the saint is rested, and people would come and visit there and give money. So people were thinking, yes, you will make good money out of this. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ran to the site where when he arrived, some of the local Babajis objected. He's not a sannyasi, they would say to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati. How can he give samadhi to such an exalted and renounced personality? But Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati responded forcefully, I am the only disciple of Babaji Maharaj. And although I have not accepted sannyas, I am a celibate brahmachari, not secretly addicted to abominable habits or involved with illicit activities. And then he said, who among you can say that in the last year you had no sex with or illicit connection with a woman, please step forward. Everyone was silent. Then he challenged, who has refrained for the last 6 months? Everybody was still silent. Then he said, okay, for the last 3 months, again silence. For the last month, again silence. Last 3 days, still there was silence. They had been exposed and humbled. Not one of the Babajis was fit to even touch the transcendental form of Gaura Kishora Das Babaji's body. And one by one, they walked away. Even then, there remained some question about how to handle the body, which was lying on the ground. Out of great humility, Gaura Kishora Das Babaji had instructed that when he departed, his body should be dragged to the streets of Navadvip so that it would be bathed in the dust from the feet of the Vaishnavas who had walked the holy ground of the Dham. So some of the townspeople proposed to take the body and drag it through the streets of Navadvip, but Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati stopped them. Although we are fools and offenders, still we can try to understand the true meaning of Babaji's Maharaj's humble request. After the departure of Thakur Haridas, Lord Chaitanya himself took the spiritually blissful body of the Thakur, Haridas Thakur, on his lap and danced. Following the divine example of Mahaprabhu, let us also bear Babaji Maharaj's blissful body on our heads. So this is the wonderful, wonderful instructions. In Vraj Leela, Gaura Kishora Das Babaji serves Srimati Radharani as Gunamanjari. His disciple, beloved disciple, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, established his samadhi on the banks of Sri Chaitanya Mat's Radhakund. So we visited there recently, near Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Yog Pit in Mayapur. So that's the life and times, at least a little bit what we know of Gaura Kishora Das Babaji. So any questions, any comments? It was a very nice discussion today, I must say. Very good to talk about the holy names like we did. But anything else? Anybody else like to say?
Prabhuji,
Yes, Naniman.
sometimes I don't get up at 4 o'clock, but sometimes at 3:30 or 4:30, if you're getting up for some reason, at that time, I just took my mala and or chant around 1 or 2 rounds, 3 rounds, depending, but still in bed, not
okay.
getting up.
That's okay.
I think that's okay because it's cold at that time. You don't want don't put heating at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, which comes natural about 6, 6:30. So I think that was okay then. Yeah, that's fine.
It is.
So,
And I think just washing your face and just
Yes.
having that freshness,
Yes.
but chanting at that time, even if it's in bed, this is one of the beauties of Maha Mantra. There's no rules or regulations. So, but as long as the mind is sort of attentive, I think that's the main thing.
That's it.
So is it all right if even if you don't have shower and
Yes.
you can chant?
This is the beauty of Maha Mantra. Gayatri Mantra, you have to be clean. You have to have a shower before chanting, facing in certain direction. So many rules. But Maha Mantra, no rules.
That is Hare Rama, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Maha Mantra.
Okay,
No
thank you.
rules. Yeah.
No rules.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Gaura Kishora Das Babaji Maharaj ki.
Thank you.
Jai.